Hello, this is Wizard. I'm gonna teach you guys how to script a punch system in Roblox. It'll include a hitbox, ragdoll. I'll teach you how everything works. Maybe I'll go into some detail on how to make some VFX for your punch. It won't be anything too, complex. It'll just be like ABD style wind effect. So I can tween that. Maybe it'll help. Maybe I'll get a sound effect, but I have desktop audio turned off, so probably not. So let's get into it. So I'm gonna want a starter pack. I'm gonna insert a local script. Local script is only accessible by the client. So client server, basically client is like you. So you are the client and you have to communicate to the server to actually get stuff to run. So like, for example, if I was on client side, actually this is probably not very understandable right now, but so I guess I'll rename this to client so it's easier to understand. And then I'll go to replicated storage, which is something that's accessible by the server and the client, so they can both see this. I'll get more into that probably later. So I made a folder called remotes and I inserted a remote event. Remote event is what's used to communicate from the client to the server so that you can actually have actions like performed on other players, because as I said, client is only yourself. You can't communicate with other people's clients unless you're doing it through the server, which is why you have remote events, so you can communicate between them. You have to be really careful with these though, and I'll tell you why, because exploiters, they can spam these, right? So I'll teach you, stuff about that. So I'll just name this like strong punch. Okay.
Dude, that was so fast.
So I have the remote event and I have the local script. Now we have to actually do something server side, but if you've seen a Bizarre Day code, you'll know that it's not very bad even if you aren't a developer, because they're rewriting the entire game. And the reason for this is because instead of having one script for each player, they have one script for every single move in server script service. And by the way, server script service and server storage are only accessible by the server, so you can't steal stuff, right? There's a lot of exploits that will steal stuff from games. It's not very cool. I wouldn't want it to happen to my game, which is why you have these two. Server script service, pretty much every server script, which is just a regular script, insert object script. Every script and module script, I guess, will run, but local scripts won't because it's not accessible by the client. Hopefully you can understand that a little bit better now. So we're not going to be using server script service because that's the reason why ABD is doing a rewrite, because it's very exploitable to have one script for every move, because you can't implement cooldowns. You have to do that on the client, and one rule of thumb is to never trust the client, okay? So we're gonna insert our script into starter character scripts, if I can actually get it to work. So we have starter character script. We can just name this server because I'm not good at naming things. So we're also going to want to do hitboxes on the server because, like ABD, you've seen kill all scripts on ABD. You can just fire the remote event, which you see here, and you can just kill everyone no matter where they are. So we're not going to have that. We're going to have this on the server. So I guess we'll just start with the client because this is more important. So we're just gonna get our replicated storage here, so we can do so basically local replicated storage equals game game colon get service replicated storage. Now I don't want to go too in depth into this because it's gonna take like 3 hours for me to actually make this if I explain every little thing. Local you don't really want to. I mean, I'm not gonna go into that because it's not really that like important unless you're like super advanced scripting, which that's not really what we're doing. Replicated storage, I already explained what it was before. So game is just, you know, like your entire game. Like if you go to workspace, this is parented to the game. Which parent, you know, like parent is like the parent of this strong punch remote event is this remotes folder over here, which the parent of that is replicated storage and so on. You can just see that in Explorer. The parent of every service is the game, which right now I don't actually have this published, so it's just called place 1. I'll probably publish it later. So this colon means you're calling a function. The function is get service replicated storage, as you can see here. So basically the function returns replicated storage, which I'll get into that later. Return just means like the function is getting a value and it's like passing it through. So replicated storage will equal to this. This is replicated storage, game get service replicated storage is that. So I mean, you could also do, since replicated storage is parented, something I should probably explain, like if I insert a part, you'll see that this part, this parent is workspace, so if I do print game.workspace.part.parent, you'll see it's the workspace over here, it says workspace. The way you can reference items is, you know, game dot, and then you get your service, or you could just do dot. So game dot workspace. So because the workspace is a child of the game, so you can do dot part. So the part is a child of the workspace. So you could just reference items like that. So I could do game dot workspace dot baseplate. And the same thing with properties too. So you could do game dot workspace dot part and then dot material, I guess. So that'll get the material of the part, which is also pretty cool. So you can reference that as well. Hopefully that's understandable. And so you get the replicated storage. Now, using what I just taught you, you can get the remotes folder. So we can do this. So remotes, oh, this is a variable, by the way. So like, yeah, you could do replicated storage.remotes every time you want to reference this folder, or you could just do remotes folder. It just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit more organized. You don't really need to do this, but it's going to be very cancer to read if you don't, so I recommend you do. And so we're just going to get the remote event, so that's, oh, I spelled it wrong. Remotes folder, sorry about that. Okay, so we get that. The remote, strong punch remote, alright. So now we have to actually fire this thing. So let's just make the key R, okay? So we'll just do now we could change this as any time. It's not really that big of a deal. I actually put this down here just for the sake of organization. Same with these. I'll put these down as well. So we'll have our services here, and then yeah, our actual items here. So we're gonna get the input of our player. So you could press tab just for that quick little, you know how I just typed that in like 0.2 seconds or something. Press tab, you get that quick thing. So as you can see, replicated storage and user input services are both services. They're basically just pre-made things by ROBLOX. game engines won't have this kind of stuff, but Roblox, it's for starters. You have that kind of stuff, I guess. So I guess we'll just start right away. So we'll do user input service input began is what's called an event. An event will activate every time something happens. So input began is every time your input starts. So let's just do, actually, okay, also there's arguments here. So like input began, we'll do input. So we have that input. So we could print input, I think. Actually, no, let's not print input. This is where it starts to get a little bit confusing. We can do input dot key code, which is the actual key that we're pressing. So we can do that. Basically, that's on your keyboard every time you press a key, I think. It should print what key it is, but it is an enum, so it might not. It might just print a number. I'll get into what enums are a little bit later. Alright. Yep, there we go. Enum.keycode. Oh, see, it is. Enum.keycode.r D F H G. See all this stuff over here. Print, I think it should be pretty obvious what it does. Print just, put stuff on the output over here. So an enum is, I think it's called like enumeration or something like that. It's basically a number that like represents a thing, I guess. So if you go to base plate, you go to material. If you go to the properties tab, there's a little drop down menu sometimes, and if it has that drop down menu, it means it's an enum. So yep, object browser, here it is. If you go to the bottom, you have all these enums over here. So basically all of these like have a number value, like all of these enums. So like this could be one. See, look over here. 0 is blue, green is 1, red is 2, white is 3. So you could just do 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever, but no one's gonna remember that. So we just use enum.keycode.whatever or whatever. Keycode is, by the way, whatever key you press. So we'll just do. Oh, by the way, this is an if statement. This is important. Just watch for a second. Oh, by the way, connect function. Connect. Actually, you know what? We'll do this a little bit more professionally. Okay. I'm not gonna do function input because that's a little bit, We'll do this. It'll teach you a little bit more. So we have on key press, which it doesn't do anything yet, but I'll tell you about it in a little bit. So let's just do like game process event. I don't really think this is that important, but yeah. I'll just call it chatting because I think that's pretty much just what it does. So we'll do just do what I do for a little bit. Okay, so we have enum.keycode key. Now here's another little trick. So if sometimes you could just do enum.keycode.r and it would work just fine, but I have the key up here, so that's what we're going to be using. Since this is a string, there's like different data types. So you got string, which is in quotes. You type whatever you want in there. There's numbers, if they're highlighted yellow. Functions, obviously right here. There's other stuff that I'm not going to get into right now. But you have you can reference, I guess, you could pretty much consider this a child of the enum of key code. But really, this will print a number, so we can do this. That should print a number, or I think enum of R. Yeah, I printed enum.keycode.R is a I don't know why I'm going to that. You probably already understand. But you have that string, which is calling R. So this is basically saying enum.keycode.R because you have this variable string. So we'll do that. So if the key is R, then we'll print key R pressed. So if the key is R, we'll print that you pressed R. So I'm just gonna press a bunch of buttons. And okay, actually, I forgot something. I forgot to actually make it so that user input service dot input again connect on key press. On key press is what we just wrote over here. So this will activate this function with the arguments that it gives. So we just input and chat. So I'm gonna press a bunch of random buttons, and you'll see that it won't print anything. You can hear me pressing it, but if I press R, it says key R pressed. So that's pretty important. We're gonna delete this print over here, and then we're gonna call another function, which is strong punch remote. Fire server is like very important. You need this in pretty much every game. It's how you communicate between the client and the server, I guess. It's a little bit of a confusing topic if you're just starting out, but the client can't communicate to the server without remote events. So if you fire server, you can pass like different values to the server. So I could do like, so then if I do that, the server will recognize this string. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but we'll just do fire server, and then I think that's all we really need to do for the client. Actually, you know what? We'll just do and, which is another very important thing. So, and not chatting. If they're chatting, we don't want them to punch. Okay? So now we'll get into the server, I think. Let's just copy our stuff from over here and delete user input service. We don't need that for the server. So now we have the strong punch remote. So we're just going to do another event. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to make it the same structure as before. So just let me do this real quick. Whoopsies. I always do that function thing by accident, but it's by habit. You don't really have to do it. This way is obviously more organized, so I suggest you do this way. On punch player. So basically, whenever this remote event is fired, which is what I just explained, the server will receive that, and the first argument that you get is whatever player fired that remote event, so whoever's client it is. So print player. If I press R, it is going to print my username because I am the player that fired it. As you can see, it printed my name. So we're gonna use that. We're going to. Okay, this next part kind of weird, but it's not that hard to understand. So local character equals player.character. Now character is not a child of the player. It's more of just like something that's built in by Roblox, I think. Basically character will just, okay, hold on. If I go into game here, you'll see in the workspace, it is going to have me. This model over here. This is my character. So whenever you do player.character, it's going to reference this. And that's a little bit important. So we're going to use that. And actually, we're going to make a simple little hitbox first. So I guess, you know what, this would be a good chance to teach you a little bit about CFrames. So just make a part and decide on how big our hitbox is supposed to be. I think that's a pretty good size. I think it's a little bit big actually. So that's going to be how big our hitbox is. Now I'm going to teach you about a very important function that I use pretty much every time I script. So we're going to want like a little bit, it's something simple about CFrame. CFrame is pretty important actually. So here is our like a part. A CFrame is basically like the position and rotation of a part. So I'm not gonna go into like that much detail, but that's pretty much all there is to it. There are certain functions. So like I said, you can reference properties using dot, as you can see here. So CFrame is a property, even though it might not show up over here, it still is a property. So we're going to do that, and let's just go to our console over here. Okay, so what I just typed in here, game.workspace.hitbox.cframe equals game.workspace.part.cframe 2 world space. I don't know why it says point. Two world space cframe.new 002. That's a little bit confusing, but basically it means that this part over here, this part CFrame is going to equal this part CFrame 2 world space 002. 2 world space 002 basically it's like it'll get, I guess, 2 studs offset of this part. I guess that's what you could say. So if I type this in, it'll move it there, and no matter how I move this part, it'll always follow it, I guess. So yeah, even if I like rotate it randomly, it will always go to that exact position in I guess relative to this part. So I guess CFrame is a data type, by the way, like string and stuff. So I mean, you could do like cframe.new 002, and that'll just bring it 002 to the world origin, which is, I guess, just 000 position. So that's pretty important. We're going to use this, I guess, our hitbox. I'm just going to mess with the properties over here. So transparency is going to be 1. It's going to be massless, because massless basically means that it's not affected by like, or is affected, but it doesn't affect other things. Force. So like, imagine you're carrying around a backpack. It's heavy, right? but if you set this part to massless, it's not going to be heavy. It's not going to feel like you're carrying anything, so you can just walk around without it bothering you. So this is very important because, or not, yeah, because you know you don't want to like walk around with like all weird stuff. So I guess we're just going to use this script, and we're going to weld this hitbox to our character so that, you know, we can actually like use it so that it stays with us. So here's another useful thing. So I'm just gonna put this at the very top. I guess I'll move that hitbox into starter character scripts because why not? So we'll just, okay, actually I'm not gonna put that at the very top. I changed my mind. We're gonna do this. So basically how starter character scripts works is everything in here will get cloned whenever your character spawns. So this hitbox will also get cloned into your character. So we're just going to do a hitbox.cframe to world space our character. So a humanoid root part, I'm going to explain, is just like, it's basically your root part. It's what your camera will follow. It's basically everything about your character is oriented around it. So we're just gonna do this. Now, script.parent. Script is obviously pretty self-explanatory. It's this script, and then .parent, which is going to be our character. Wait for child. This is pretty important because basically, if you do script.parent .humanoid root part, and that humanoid root part doesn't exist yet, which it might not, depending on like lag and stuff. If it doesn't exist, your script is going to error and nothing is going to work. So you do wait for child, which will yield the script, which basically means it'll stop running at this line until it finds something called humanoid root part. And that's pretty much it. .cframe, to world space, cframe.new 002. Obviously, I just explained that. The 2 at the end over here, actually, I'm gonna put this at -2 because your humanoid root part is backwards for some reason. So 2, I'm gonna put it as like half the Z size of this because the position value of your hitbox is at the very middle, so obviously half of it is going, you know, it has to be offset just so it's in front of your character. Some math stuff, I guess. And so now that it's there, we're going to weld it. So just I'll type some stuff and I'll explain it. Alright, basically instance is another data type, I think. So instance would be like everything over here. So this is an instance, it's basically just like an object in your game. So workspace is an instance, baseplate is an instance, everything over here is an instance. So instance.new basically creates a new instance, and we're creating a weld constraint, and it's a string because that's how Roblox works. Weld constraint, basically it'll like kind of stick two objects together, and so they'll always be like relative to each other. So for example, let's have two parts here, and we're going to create a weld constraint between them. So now if I run the game, I'll just wait for it to load, you can take this part, you can rotate it, and the other part will move with it. Never mind. I forgot that weld constraints don't work that way, because if you change them by script, it's not going to work like that. So I can't really prove it to you. I'll prove it to you when we actually get this hitbox. So weld.part 0 equal to hitbox. Basically, part 0, part 1 are just the two parts that you're welding together. These are properties, which is why they're welded with the period. And then weld.parent equals hitbox. You have to have a parent or the weld is not going to do anything. And I think we can run it now, and it should work. So we'll just go to the Explorer and we'll select the hitbox. You'll see a selection box around it, and it'll be welded to our character. So as you can see, it's right there, and it's stuck to our character's humanoid root part. The humanoid root part is right here. Hitbox is right here. So we're just going to do this, I guess. Now, here's where it gets a little bit confusing. I'm going to make a hitbox script. Now, this is going to be very confusing to understand, so I'm going to try to go in depth. We're going to do local function hitbox. And yeah, okay. I'll just write it out and I'll explain it to you. Hitbox, get touching parts. Now, if you have programming experience, it's probably what get touching parts. It'll get everything that's touching this part. Oh, by the way, there's something called a touch interest. Get touching parts will not work if there is no touch interest. Touch interest is an instance that detects touches to the part. So we have that in tools. So we're just going to do a simple event here. We're not going to put anything into it because we don't know anything that happens. But yeah. So basically hitbox.touch to connect function, nothing will happen, but doing .touched will create a touch interest in the part. By the way, we should probably change the name of this function because it's the same as that. So we'll just do local hitbox thing, okay? That's gonna be our thing. And then so we have the getting the touching parts of our hitbox. And then we have characters, which is an empty table, which I'll explain tables to you in a little bit. So for IV in pairs touching, do. Basically, I is a number value, so actually I think it'll be easier to explain if I actually get something else, like a different program to explain this. Alright, so we're here in this Lua editor, I guess. It'll execute Lua program, which if you didn't know, that's the programming language that ROBLOX uses. So we're just gonna go over some simple stuff with tables. So we're just gonna do we're just gonna make a little table here. So we have our table with 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, you know what? Let's change these up. You can put the good thing with Lua that beats a lot of other languages. You can put any value you want into a table. I'm not gonna go into that, but it does make tables better. So I'm just gonna do some random stuff. So we have our table. It has a string, a number, and a boolean, which I forgot to go over. It's just true or false. That's all it is. So with our table, we can reference it by doing, we can reference each. So let's say I wanted to reference this 1. So we're gonna do print table 2. Now this is the second value in the table, which is why we're going to do print table 2. So as you can see, if I run it, it's going to print 1. See, as you can see down here, it printed 1. So we can do that with any of them. So if I did print table 3, it'll print true. So that's how it works. Now we're going to get a little bit more in depth. We're going to learn about for loops with pairs. So this is very important. I use this pretty much in all my scripts. Not really, but I use this very often. So I stands for index and V stands for value. You could change these to whatever you want, but most people just use IV. It's easier. Everyone knows what it is. In pairs table. Pairs, you know, it's just IV. Table is this table right here. This will only work with tables. So if we do print IV, I'll just show you how. As you can see, it printed 1, 2, 3, hello world, 1 true. So I is equal to 1, and V is equal to hello world, and then it basically loops through everything in the table. So 2 is 1, this value right here, as you can see, and then 3 is true. So it'll loop through everything in the table, and you can edit the stuff, if that makes sense. So like, we could do like V is equal to, I don't know, like 1. Run it again, everything is equal to 1 now. So it'll loop through everything in the table. That's basically what it does. This is super important. It can be used in a lot of, it's very applicable. I'll show you that in a second. So I'll get back to studio. Alright, so we're back in studio, and we have this. So IV and pairs touching. So basically, you know, V is the part that is touching, and I is whatever number value, or whichever, you know, you probably know what that means. So we're doing another if statement. So we have another word called not, and so if not, table.find characters touching I.parent. Now, table.find will return the number of like whatever value that you're trying to find. So let's say there was a part in the table and you didn't know which value it was, but you referenced it. So like table.find characters and then game.workspace.part. If there wasn't a table, it would return whatever number value it is, which the I value pretty much. So touching I.parent. Basically, if it doesn't find the touching, whatever part is touching parent, then it'll pass through. So if that thing's parent is not already in the table, basically, and touching I.parent, find first child humanoid. Now find first child is useful for, I guess, finding whatever child. So this will go by the name, and if it finds something by that name, then it'll pass. So we'll do table to insert characters touching I.parent. So basically, if it's not already in the table and it's humanoid, then we can insert it into this characters folder. So now we're gonna test that out. We're gonna do print characters. Or not really, because if you print, you're gonna get a hexadecimal, and it's not gonna work. So you have to use a for loop to print. And so just to prove it to you, let's just get... Actually, hold on. I forgot to even do the thing. I'm kind of stupid. Alright, so now, whenever this event, the strong punch event is fired, it will activate this hitbox function. Let's just insert a dummy real quick. So, actually, you know what? I'll probably make this R6. It'll just be easier for me to animate. So let's just go over to this dummy real quick. It's kind of awkward. But if I press R, it'll just print my name because I'm the only thing touching the part. And we'll fix that a little bit. But if I go up to this dummy and I press R, actually I forgot. It'll do the dummy because the dummy is in the hitbox. So that's very useful. Okay, actually, we'll make this hitbox can't collide off. You shouldn't be able to collide with the hitbox, right? Okay, so that means the dummy was touching the hitbox, which is another very useful thing. So we can do now Funk, a little weird name, is what we're gonna input into this function. So we can input things and it'll work with it. So for example, we can do print into this input, and it will print out V. So we can input any function we want into there, and it should execute it pretty much. Okay, actually, let me just put a spawn pad next to this dummy. Alright. So we can print this dummy and us. So actually, what we want to do is we want to exclude it. We don't want the hitbox to actually hit our character, so we are going to do that. So, and not touching eye, find first ancestor, basically it'll just go up. So like, say this strong punch remote, ancestors are remotes, replicated storage, and game. So find first ancestor script.parent.name. Script.parent.name is just going to be our character's name. So if it doesn't find our character, then it should work. So if I go in right now and I press R, it's not going to print anything. But if the dummy is in the hitbox and I press R, it should print. So as you can see, it's not printing anything. But if the dummy is in, then it prints. So that is pretty much it. And now we're going to actually script what the hitbox does. So obviously we have this func over here, so let's just make a new function, call it like hitbox, I don't know, like strong punch hit. So we have strong punch hit, and car, or short for character, is our input value, so we're inputting that into the function. And so we're already assuming that the car is a humanoid. We're not gonna really go into we're not gonna make that extra step, there's no point. So let's just do car.humanoid, and then I'll make it take damage. So as you can see, car.humanoid, this is obviously referencing the humanoid that is parented to the character. we're calling a function called take damage. Whoopsies. We're calling take damage, so it's going to take 5 damage. Alright, so let's give that a shot. Actually, hold on. Strong punch hit. I forgot about that. So let's see if this works. The dummy should take 5 damage. As you can see, the dummy is taking damage. The more I press R, and he died. Alright, very cool. So let's just up this a little bit further, and let's give him some knockback, shall we? So we're gonna do local. So body velocity is something called a body mover. It's really pretty obvious what it does. It'll apply a force to your body, and you'll keep moving there until the body velocity is destroyed. So I'll just type in some more stuff to edit this body velocity. Okay, I kind of messed up here. I meant to put this into the strong punch hit function. So, actually, let's change V to car. So, basically, we're creating our body velocity. The max force, which is basically, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory, is going to be vector 3, which, if you've watched Despicable Me, I know a friend who will know this very well, is like direction and magnitude or whatever. I think that's vector 3 can be used to change the location of parts. So we'll do like vector 3 0 0 0. We'll move it to the point 0 0 0, etc., etc. So like it'll do something like so. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Vector 3 on new 0 0 0. It references, you know, the very middle of the game, I guess. So it can be used for magnitude, I think, or force. Force works. So max force, math.huge is equal to infinity. Okay, so we're basically just giving it an infinite max force, so it can go as powerful as it wants. bv.velocity is how much force it will actually apply. So script.parent.humanoid root part, which is, you know, our character's humanoid root part .CFrame, which I already explained this earlier. And then look vector is what direction that humanoid root part is looking in, and then 50. So this will apply a velocity of, I guess I don't really understand this math either. It's just some weird math. It doesn't really matter. Times 50, just moves it 50 times, and then the parent will be the humanoid root part of that character. add item, this will just add it to the queue, I guess. BV, which is our body velocity, and 0.2. So it will destroy the body velocity in 0.2 seconds, and you'll see that right now when he'll fly for a little bit and then he'll stop. So let's try it out. See, as you can see, he stopped after a little bit of flying. You can just keep doing that. Just knock him off the map, maybe. And there it goes. So I guess that's pretty cool. I mean, actually, let's have this further. Let's make a cooldown, I guess. So let's find our on punch function. It's right here. All right. So we're going to do let's do a cooldown. So basically, local strong punch cooldown equals false means it's not on cooldown. So we're going to do so if it's not on cooldown, then this will run, but we're gonna set that cooldown to true so that you can't run it, I guess. Now, as you can see, I didn't put local before this time, like I did up here, because if I put local, I guess the scope of this is not as much as this. So, like as you can see, I guess you can count it by indents if you're organized. Like this is more indented than that. Therefore, if I put local, it's not going to, I guess, affect this. But if I don't put local, then it will affect every other variable that's called strong punch cooldown. So we're gonna set it to true. Let's set a cooldown of maybe 5 seconds. So basically, once you run it, it'll set it to true, and then 5 seconds later, it'll set it to false, meaning you could run it again. So let's see that. Obviously, there's a wait function. It should be pretty self-explanatory. So as you can see, I'll punch him, and let's go up to him. I can't punch him anymore, but if we wait a few seconds, there we go, you can punch him again. So there's the cooldown. Now, let's see, let's make an animation. How about that? Let's just get like an R6 dummy. Actually, let's delete this dummy because he's R15, we don't like him. Make an R6 rig. And we're gonna animate this. So you can open the default animation editor. Should come with it. Select a rig to animate. You're going to click on your dummy, press create. And how it works is you can click on this, move it around. You can press R and you can actually move it like that. Obviously Control Z to undo like every other program. So let's just make a quick punching animation. So we're going to have like a little recharge, or not recharge, but like pull back. I'm not an animator. It's not gonna look very good, but basic. So we're gonna have that, and then you can move this slider around. These are called keyframes. Move this slider around so you can select a time, I guess. The closer you move it, the faster it'll go. I think this should be pretty easy. So let's just make him actually punch. So you can press space to play it. Okay, that's a little bit fast, isn't it? Alright, let me actually fix this up a little bit more. Still want it to look good, you know. And I don't want it to just immediately move like that. So I'll Control C, Control V that keyframe over there, so that it'll be a little pause and then it'll punch. Make it a little bit faster. Alright, I guess that works. And we're not gonna put any leg movement because we want his legs to keep moving, you know? Because like when you're punching and you're walking, you're not just gonna have your legs stand still, so I'm just not gonna edit the legs. So we're gonna do export. We're gonna click on these three dots, export. You can name the animation. So you can do that. Why can I not submit it? Okay, you have to have a description for some reason. You actually can't see the screen right now, so let me just turn on my display capture. So you can see it should bring up this little screen over here. Press submit, and you can copy the ID with this little button. ID copied. You can close this out. And actually, you couldn't see my animation editor the entire time. That's very cool. So I'll keep display capture on from now on, just in case you guys are missing anything. Hopefully not. I did a little oopsie, but you know, it should be pretty easy. It's like editing a video. Move the slider. You can move the body parts around. Press R. You know, it should be pretty easy. So now that we have the animation ID copied, let's insert an object into our script. So we're calling that punch anim, and I inserted an animation, by the way. You want to paste your animation ID, which for some reason did not copy. So I'm just gonna go in my browser and get it real quick. It should copy for you. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm back. I got the ID copy. Just paste it in there and it should automatically give you RBX asset ID : / and then whatever ID you input. So that's good. Now, I think load animation on a humanoid was deprecated, so I don't want to worry about that. I think I'm going to try out the new method. So, we're going to do this. Local animator. We're going to create an animator or one that already exists. So. Alright, so what I did here, I made an animator, a script.parent for child humanoid. So we're waiting for that humanoid. Find first child animator, obviously, if the animator exists. And here's a little bit weird. Or instance.new animator, and then comma script.parent wait for child humanoid, which is just setting the, you know, the parent to the humanoid with the second argument. So, or basically, if this animator does not exist, then we're going to create one. So let's see if that works. Actually, no, never mind. Let's do this. So let's just play the animation, I guess. So actually, I forgot to make a punch enum variable, so let's just do that right now. So we're local punch anim equals this punch animation track right here, and then we're doing animator load animation, which it'll just load it onto the animator, and then we'll play it. So it's going to play the animation. So let's try that out right now. If I press R, voice crack. If I press R, it should play the animation. Actually, let's check if there's an animation. Yep, it made an animator. Alright, let's see. Yep, as you can see, it plays the animation whenever I press R. So let's see if it punches a dummy. Okay, I forgot to add a little bit of a weight because animation does not yield, so we're just going to play this and then do hitbox, and we're going to make it wait a little bit so that it doesn't punch right when you start. It doesn't actually punch him when you have punched him, right? So let's add like a wait. So that way the punch is actually timed correctly. So let's do that again. Okay, first time when you actually get an animation, it might not load correctly, so let's just do it again. Alright, as you can see, it punched him, and there's a cooldown. Just try it again. Alright, so that's pretty cool. So now actually let's make a VFX. So I'm gonna hop over to Blender and I'll meet you guys there. Alright, so I'm in Blender and I'm in Blender 2.8. So I mean, if you have Blender 2.9, it probably doesn't matter. It'll look the same pretty much. Just do what I'm doing. So I'm going to insert a circle. I'm going to press R, X, 90. This will rotate it on the X axis by 90 degrees. Now I'm going to go edit mode by pressing tab. I'm going to press E, and then I'm going to press Y, which is going to extrude these vertices on the Y axis. Probably just don't worry about this that much because this is a scripting tutorial. I just want to make some quick VFX. So it'll make like a cylinder looking thing, and I'm just going to select like every other vertice. So now that I have these, I can press G to move these around. And then I can press Y. And then that'll move them on the Y axis. And then I'm going to press 2 so that I have line selection mode. So I can select it by line. Press Alt, select this entire row. And then press O for proportional editing, and you'll see what it does. Press 1 again, and then I'll press S to scale it. And then you can scroll out or in to change the size of the proportional editing. So then you have this like wind tube. You can press shade smooth so that it's smoother. Go to this little wrench over here and then press add modifier, add a solidify modifier. I'm going to add a auto smooth to this just so that it doesn't have weird shading. You can press the little triangle, normals, auto smooth, check it. So here's our VFX. Go to this, press apply. Sorry if that's a little fast paced, but now you have your VFX. And I'm going to recalculate the outside so that it doesn't look weird. So press go to edit mode by pressing tab, press A to select everything, hold down Alt, press N, press recalculate outside, and then you're done with that. So you can do file, export, OBJ or FBX, it doesn't matter. I'm going to save mine as punch VFX. So we'll do that. Now let's hop over back to Studio. We're going to insert a mesh part. So here's our mesh part where you can insert custom meshes. So click the little folder, select your VFX. You can press no or yes, it probably won't really matter. So now you have it in game. You can just mess with the properties a little bit, which is what I'm going to do. Alright, so that looks pretty extreme, but don't worry about it. Now, let's see how big we want this to be. I think that big looks pretty good for a punch VFX, so let's just copy the size so that we don't lose it. And let's rename this to punch effect. I'm gonna make a new folder in replicated storage, just so we have that. I'll call it like FX. So let's just okay. We're going to edit this from properties, so we're going to make this not collidable. We're going to anchor it. And that's pretty much it. So let's just set the size to 0, 0, 0. And then, so now I'll teach you something about Tween service, I guess. So it's a service, so as you probably guess, we're going to be using game get service. So we have Tween service here, and we can make some info, Tween info, which is going to be this. Tween info, just like vector 3 or CFrame, as you can see here, but that's vector 3, is a data type. So let's just see what arguments we have. So let's just see. We have time, easing style, easing direction, repeat count, reverses, and delay time. So these are enums, two of these, easing direction and easing style. So obviously you already know about enums. So let's just do this. Let's have this take 0.5 seconds. Excuse me. Okay, I'm back. I apologize. My mother decided to walk in. So, our next argument is the direction, I think. Let's just check it out. So, new, oopsies. Easing style. Okay, easing style. I'm sorry. So it's an enum, so enum dot easing style, and then you can pick one. You can experiment with which one you want. I'm gonna go with sign. I think it. Whoopsies! What the heck? Sign. So enum, and then in or out enum dot. Okay. Basically, it'll just if it's enum.easingDirection.in, it'll play the actual animation first, and if it's out, it'll play it last. You can experiment with this however many times it doesn't really matter. Now next is repeat count, so we're going to do 0 because we don't want it to repeat, and reverses. So reverses is if it goes in or out, or like if it if it reverses. So like if it will it go back to its original state or will it not? So we're going to set that to false. Now, I forgot to mention what Tween service actually is. Basically, it's a way to smoothly transition a property based, like, it'll just make it smooth and it'll give it this nice animation like sign. So we're going to do some cloning here. It's gonna be very cool. Don't worry about it. So just look at this. So we have. Actually, let's make a variable for the effects folder. So now we have our effects folder, and now we're going to go here, and then we're going to do local. I guess punch FX equals the clone. Alright, just look. So basically, it'll clone this part, so you have like a duplicate, and then you're going to, I guess, put the CFrame using the same CFrame function that we used for this hitbox. We're going to do let's just copy paste this, and look at this. So we're going to set the C-frame in front of the humanoid part. And then we're going to create a tween so that we can smoothly transition the size. Okay, I kind of forgot that I copy pasted the size earlier. So now let's just get that size again because I don't remember what it was. That looks like a decent size. Make it a little bigger maybe. Maybe let's make it a little longer. Yep. So we're gonna copy that size and let's just undo all that. And then, so vector3.new, I said it can be used for size, position, whatever. So you're just making that size, and this is basically just like animation. So like you're loading it, basically creating the tween. And by the way, this is a table of everything, so you can tween the size, and then you can also, oh by the way, tables are separated by commas. I don't know if I mentioned that. You can do like transparency, so that it'll become invisible. And yeah, so you could just keep adding whatever property you want. And then actually let's just call this like local tween. So now we have that tween. We have it loaded onto the part. Now we have to play it, so we can use tween play. So now it should play that tween. Yeah, let's check it out. Oh, okay. One more thing. I forgot to set the parent of this punch effect to the workspace. Obviously, you should know how to do that by now. I mean, if you've been watching and listening to everything I say, you should know how to set the parent to workspace. It's backwards. Very cool. Okay. So, I think this is going to take a little bit of experimenting. You do times CFrame dot angles, and then 0, 0, and then like, actually, I think, okay. This is going to be a math function. So math, you saw math.huge earlier. We're going to do math.rad. I don't know what this means because I'm not good at math, but use it. Set this to 180 and then 0. And that's going to take a little bit of experimenting because I really don't know what axis to rotate it on. But, you know, let's try it out. If yours works right the first time, no point in adding this unless you want to add some weird. So there we go. It worked. Very cool. Now, we don't want these punch effects to clog up our thing. So we're just going to use debris like we did earlier with this body velocity, and we're going to destroy it after this tween is ended, which will take 0.5 seconds. So now it's going to get deleted whenever we finish the punch. So I forgot to mention this earlier, but the way we did this hitbox, whereas for IV impaired characters do this, it actually made it so you can hit multiple targets at once without saying anything. But that's what I meant to do at the start, so I can just duplicate this dummy and move it. You'll see we can hit both of them at once. So just look at this. I mean, if you don't want that to happen, you can just remove the for loop and it should be fine. But as you can see, I hit all 3 of them. Now, you can, let's say you want to buff the damage. You can change this to whatever you want. Let's say 20. And yeah, you can do more damage like that. I think that should be pretty much it for our punch. You've got the basic, like, base of a combat system. You've got a hitbox script. You've got stuff. So I think that should be pretty much it. I will leave the game link to this place in the description if you want to PvP people, even though it's not very fun. Let me know in the comments if you do want to see more tutorials like this. I can go over different combat mechanics if you want. Like, I can do some projectiles, I can do more melee kind of moves. Maybe next time I'll get to a ragdoll or even a camera shake. Depends on what you guys want. So that's pretty much it for the tutorial, and I'll see you guys next time. Alright. Hey guys, editing wizard here. I just realized a big whoopsie that I made. If you go to server here, actually let's just do a double test here. So I have my game open with my alt. If I attack, we both attack because I forgot to add that. Since they're both run off the same remote, if you fire that remote, then they will both run. So I'll add a solution to that right here. So if we do get the player service, and then we do if not strong punch cooldown and so player equals get player from character script parent. Then that means if the one that fired the event is the same as the character that you are, which is you, then the script will run for you. So if, you know, so it should work here. As you can see, if I get into a double test here with two servers or two players, just wait for it to start up. Just give it a minute. You'll see that this is the only one that runs. And if I switch clients, it also does that. So just keep that in mind. Actually put that in your script like right now, or else your game will be unplayable. Thank you for listening.